Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a really powerful passage from the Quran's second chapter, Al-Baqarah. It's a fascinating case study on the nature of faith, the dangers of doubt, and the huge responsibility that comes with knowledge.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this story by looking at 5 key themes. We'll start with a broken promise, then a challenge involving life and death, the hostility towards the divine messenger, a choice between scripture and sorcery, and we'll wrap up with some crucial advice. It all kicks off with a major event at a sacred mountain.
So our story begins at this absolutely pivotal moment. A sacred covenant is being made between a community and God at Mount Tur. This is a foundational event.
And the command was so clear, right? It was hold firmly to what we've given you and listen. It's a call to fully embrace the divine guidance with everything they've got and to listen with the real intention of obeying.
Their response is just, wow, it's so stark. It's an immediate spiritual rebellion that reveals this huge disconnect. They're basically saying, yep, we got the message, but in the same breath, we have no intention of following it. It's such a powerful moment that shows the gap between just hearing words and truly accepting them in your heart.
So, this attitude of disobedience naturally leads to a direct challenge from the text. It's designed to put their claims of exclusive salvation to the ultimate test.
The logic here is just razor sharp. It's a powerful put your money where your mouth is moment. The challenge is saying, look, if you're so absolutely certain that you and only you are guaranteed a spot in paradise, why on earth would you fear death? Shouldn't you be excited to get there?
In this slide just lays out the massive contradiction. On the one hand, they're making these bold spiritual claims, but on the other hand, their actions tell a completely different story. They preached about their certainty in the next life while desperately clinging to this one.
In fact, the passage says they wished they could live for 1,000 years. Think about that. That intense desire for an impossibly long life just screams fear of what comes next, a fear that totally undermines their whole claim of having an exclusive, guaranteed paradise waiting for them. Okay, now the narrative takes a really interesting turn. It zooms in on their relationship not just with the message, but with the one who delivered it, in this case, the angel Gabriel. Now, according to the commentary on this, their anger wasn't really about the message itself, it was about who the message was for. They were apparently upset that the final revelation went to Prophet Muhammad instead of to someone from their own people. It was a kind of spiritual jealousy. And the text makes this point incredibly clear. It frames their hostility as being against God himself. Why? Because Gabriel wasn't acting on his own. He was just a messenger following a divine command. So to be his enemy was to declare yourself an enemy of the one who sent him.
All right, this next section explores a really pivotal moment, a dark turn, where the community starts to move away from revealed scripture and gets drawn into the world of forbidden occult knowledge.
So instead of sticking to their sacred texts, they got fascinated by magic and sorcery. And to make it all seem legitimate, they tried to pin it on the Prophet Solomon, a figure they deeply respected, even though he had nothing to do with it.
Let's break this complicated story down. First, the text immediately clears Solomon's name. Then, it tells us about 2 angels, Harut and Marut. Now, they were sent to Babylon not to corrupt people, but to test them with this powerful and frankly dangerous kind of knowledge.
I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that, right? This was the explicit warning label the angels attached to their teachings. They were upfront about it. This knowledge was a double-edged sword, a trial of faith. And they flat out said that using it for evil was an act of disbelief.
So the text makes it crystal clear that this wasn't some innocent mistake. These people knew what they were doing. They were fully aware of the spiritual price tag, deliberately choosing knowledge that would only cause harm. They knew it meant giving up any hope in the afterlife, basically trading eternal value for a bit of temporary worldly power.
So, after all that history and storytelling, the final part of this passage shifts gears. It offers some direct, really practical advice to the believers, almost like a guide on how to avoid falling into these same traps.
This is such a fascinating detail about the power of language. Believers were using a pretty common Arabic word, ra'ina, to ask the Prophet for his attention. But some people were cleverly twisting the pronunciation to make it sound like an insult. So the guidance came down, hey, stop using that word. Use this other one, unzurna, instead. It's a perfect example of how even tiny choices in our words can have huge social and spiritual weight.
And you see, this wasn't just about good manners. It was a strategic move for spiritual protection. It was about closing a loophole that jealous people were trying to exploit. And notice how that theme of envy connects right back to the hostility they had for the messenger. It's all part of the same underlying struggle.
And this all brings us to a final, big question. One that jumps right out of the ancient story of Harut and Marut and lands in our world today. When we're given powerful tools, whether it's AI, social media, genetic engineering, you name it, how do we make sure we use them for good and not for harm? Where do we draw that incredibly fine line between powerful knowledge and forbidden corruption?